There are more of us. Hello, what have we here? And welcome, Brooke, to the There Are More of Us show. How's it going?
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you on there. Love your content.
Thank you. I love your content too. I had been admiring your content for quite some time, so when you asked me to be on this show, I was quite excited.
Yeah, I love your content because of the scientific nature. Big science nerd since I was a kid, and I mean, I learned something from all your videos because the ocean is scary and terrifying, and lots of weird stuff down there. So, uh, you bring such a great energy to just teaching people about animals and species that they would never hear of or never know how to pronounce.
I do get that comment a lot that people are like, that's how you say it. I've also been corrected, so sometimes you will have situations where you will read that word over and over and over again, but nobody ever pronounces it. And then
Mhm.
you pronounce it, and some older scientist is like, actually, you say it like this. So that is the nature of science. Is sometimes people know how to pronounce things, and sometimes people don't.
Yeah, that reminds me of the first week of law school, orientation week, where there's a concept called res ipsa loquitur. And so we had to read in preparation for this, but you never heard it pronounced. So I remember this one of my classmates mispronounced it and it like butchered it, which, like you've never heard it before and it's Latin. And so the professor, like, went back and forth with him like 5 or 6 times. Like no, it's this, and it's like, all right, someone's got to give at some point because this is getting
Right,
embarrassing for everybody.
right.
But
Here to
it's
learn.
yeah, you learn, you live and you learn. But for those that don't know your content, what kind of content do you make?
What kind of, it's almost like what content don't I make at this point?
Hmm.
But like my main content is I post at least one fact video each day, and it talks something about some kind of aquatic animal. It's usually marine because my specialty is marine biology, but I'll do different aquatic animals. I'll delve into freshwater sometimes. But then on the side, I also do lots of Star Wars content because I love Star Wars. And I was like, I don't need to be placed in this singular box where the only thing that I can do is like the science aspect. I also want to show all of the other sides of myself and get to
Hmm.
engage with these communities. So I do Star Wars. And there's also some Dune thrown in there a little bit.
Yeah, you have a really good Cal Kestis cosplay.
I do. I have my Cal Kestis cosplay now. Thank you. I
Hmm.
thrifted. I think it was all of it for the outfit. Yes, every piece of it was thrifted at some point.
Wow.
I
Yeah, I
got
can.
really lucky with getting some of the colors.
Yeah, and it looks really good. I would have thought you either sewed it yourself or bought it somewhere or bought it from different places. With thrifting, like that's a whole new level of talent to be able to find it in thrift shops. I know thrift shops have a lot, but you know
A lot of
never.
patience.
Yeah, there
The
is. I don't.
backpack wasn't thrifted though. I forgot. So that and the
Uh,
BD one. My
mm,
BD one, I have to like figure out how I can like move to the side to show it. It's He's down there. I would have
mm,
brought him up for everybody to see, but he's kind of flimsy, so I didn't want him to fall apart.
yeah, that's fair.
The bunny already knocked him over today.
Oh, BD1 has gone through it in both games, so it's fine. He can rest.
He can rest now.
Yeah, until the third one, which I
I'm scared.
was well. Yeah, I was just like he got like scrunched by Darth Vader. He's been shot. He's been thrown. Like you know,
I'm also real scared for Grease, if we're being honest.
yeah, because I feel like Marin is safe. I hope Marin is safe, but
I have such.
Greasy
Grease.
Money already got one arm off, and
Yeah,
he's been getting closer and closer.
I'm scared. Hopefully, maybe we'll have a happy ending.
Yeah, maybe like they got their own planet. They can just chill out away.
Sure,
Raise some Jedi witches. Like hopefully.
everything's gonna be fine.
Yeah, what is Star Wars if not hot people in pain persevering?
so accurate.
Hmm. Uh, so, what is your Star Wars story? So, like, what got you into it? Why do you love it?
When I was like really little, I do remember I was because the Phantom Menace came out in '99, so I would have been
Mm-hmm.
4, so I definitely don't remember that. But I do
Mm-hmm.
remember Attack of the Clones. Pretty sure I went to see the movie, I think, and then I remember seeing the like first movie, so like the first OT, New Hope. And then after that, I didn't have any experience with Star Wars. I guess my parents just didn't put it on or anything after that. And so then when The Rise of Skywalker came out, my brother was like, "Hey, don't have any plans for Christmas. These are your plans." And I was like, "Well, I was already going to be with you all, but what do you have in store, brother?" And so my
Mm-hmm.
brother had me watch all of the original trilogy. Then he had me watch all of the sequels, and then we went to see The Rise of Skywalker in 24 hours.
Mm.
So I most people had years that they had to wait in between them. I watched them all in succession.
Yeah,
So that was an experience, but I loved it and I was so enamored by all of it and I just immediately dove in and I haven't looked back since. And now I've been diving into all of the different things that Star Wars has to offer, like watching all the TV shows, the
Mhm.
animated shows, the games, obviously. And I just love Star Wars and I'm so glad that he showed them to me. And now he, of course, regrets it because of how much I love it, but that's his fault.
Yeah, my brother also got me into Star Wars, and I like to hit him with like Yoda's line in the Last Jedi. I am what grows beyond you. That is the burden of all masters, and he hates that. He's not the biggest fan of the Last Jedi, but he hates that I say that to him specifically, since he's the one that got me into Star Wars. I also hit him with the Vader line, or in the Kenobi shows, like, "What have you become? I am what you made me." You know,
That's what I
uh,
was thinking of, yeah.
Attack of the Clones was my first ever midnight showing. So while I was the same age when the Phantom Menace came out, and I remember Darth Maul's lightsaber activating. Like, that's consciousness began. But I also saw that movie like 12 times in theaters because I was everyone's birthday party. Or like,
Oh,
we need to get the
wow.
kids out of the house. Let's go see Star Wars for a couple hours. But I remember Attack of the Clones more because I was 8, and then so midnight showing it during the school year, so I got to stay up late. It was me, my dad, and my brothers, and Yoda coming in to confront Dooku. Everybody started cheering, and then when he pulled out his lightsaber, standing ovation.
Oh my
Like,
god.
no one sat down during that entire fight.
I bet. That would
Yeah.
have been so cool. I don't remember going to see that movie, but I do for some reason remember watching A New Hope at home on a
Hmm.
VHS.
Yeah, I don't remember the first viewings of, because I think I was a little bit younger than 4 for the original trilogy. I just know that I had that knowledge at some point to know like when everything was going to happen when I on further viewings. Is those, remember those VHS tapes? Just pop them in and rewind.
Yeah.
So what does Star Wars mean to you?
So Star Wars for me, like when I first watched it, I was just really taken aback by the world. Like I love world building. That's part of why I like Dune so much because they have such this expansive, really interesting ecological world. So the biologist in me loves that. And it's very similar with Star Wars. But I'm also really fascinated by stories where it's very character driven and you're looking at the different relationships between characters and how do they interact with things that we all experience in real life, like grief. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do you deal with oppression? And you have to watch these characters move through these things that might mirror our real life. And that's always been really fascinating to me. And I loved the original trilogy when I was watching it. And then we got to the sequels trilogy, and I loved that one too, because I was just like, you can see some of these patterns continuing where these characters are experiencing some of the same things, but they're handling things in different ways, and their relationships might be a little bit different. But you get to see like also the lightsaber battles, which I've
Mm-hmm.
always really thought were cool, and I love. Like especially now with the acolyte that they're including martial arts and everything.
Yeah.
Like the lightsaber battles and the martial arts fights in the acolyte have been very cool.
Oh yeah, I'm always happy to see people literally throw hands.
Yes. And so like one of my favorite sides of Star Wars is the Jedi series. And that's one of those that kind of encapsulates everything that I was talking about, where you get to watch these characters grow and change as they go
Hmm.
along. And you get to see these relationships blossom. And you get to see how, like, Cal, for example, is grappling with this trauma that he received when he was very young. And how does he move
Hmm.
on with that? And how does he engage with the world as a result of that? And how can he be a person who is masculine coded while he's also very soft? Like I'm replaying Jedi Fallen Order for the third time now, and there's this
Hmm.
scene where Prof is realizing that he's force sensitive, and Cal just like puts his hand on his face, and he's like, "Hey, hey, I know," and like that's such a gentle thing that in a video game with a male lead you wouldn't
Hmm.
expect to see that, and I love that that's something that's possible in Star Wars.
Yeah. The Jedi series is phenomenal. I love it. I can't decide which one's my favorite between Fallen Order and Survivor. They just both do things so well. Um, I still have a hard time forgiving Vader for Trilla, and then Seer. See, so when I was playing Survivor, it was like I don't know, like 2 a.m. and did the first Bode Cow confrontation, and then it like you blink out and it's like I was like, did I lose or is this like scripted? And then it hits respawn and then I'm searing. I'm like,
I screamed. I was so excited.
I was just like, all right, I need to do this when I'm like awake and fresh and everything. And I was doing it because I'm just like, I was thinking it was going to be like Halo Reach, and I don't know if you played the Halo games when you were younger,
Like
but
vaguely, yeah.
yeah, so at the end of Halo Reach, your character is fighting off all these aliens, and no matter how long you last, you have to die. And so I was thinking like this is what was going to happen with Seer, and I'm like, I can't handle that right now. And then only for it to work, and you get everything, and then you just hear, here comes old Wheezy, and I'm like, oh
And that fight's hard.
yeah.
There's a strategy to it. And once you figure out the strategy, it makes it easier, but it is hard.
Yeah, I think it, and as it should be, the hardest fight in the game.
Yes.
Um, and yeah, because I remember when I faced Bode finally, like my friend was like, "You're gonna need the blaster saber," the one form that I had not used at all throughout the rest of the game, and I was like, "All right, so let me learn how to use it real quick." And then I just kept getting frustrated. And I was like, "All right, let me show you the power of two blades," because that's what
Yeah.
I was using. I was like, "That's my favorite form." So I'm like, all right, shout out to Ahsoka Tano. But like, I was like, that's where I'm back to that.
Yeah, I was not able to do the blaster stance. I just didn't like it. I am a double bladed girly in everything, and so
Hmm.
I had to continue using that. And that's pretty much exclusively what I use in Jedi Survivor because it's nicer in Jedi Survivor versus a Jedi Fallen Order, where
Hmm.
there is a clear difference between using the single versus the double.
Yeah.
Not as clear of a difference, which was great for me because I was like, I can just use my double one and be happy. Because you have to use the single one in one-on-one battles in Jedi
Hmm.
Fallen Order, or you will be there forever.
Yeah. So I can't wait for the third one. But yeah, shout out to Cal Kestis, Marin, Greasy Money, BD1, Seer Junda, rest in peace.
One of the top three times I have cried in all of media, with the other
Uh,
being when Grogu and Din were first separated.
yeah, oh yeah, I see when I watched that, I was in my office at like 7:30 in the morning. So I was like, the only people there are like the paralegals or the legal assistants. None of the other attorneys were there, or at least if they were, they're like the older attorneys that like get there at 5 in the morning. And so I'm like watching, and I'm just like, let's go, let's go. Oh wait, like everything okay in there? Yeah, I'm good.
I love that so much. No, I was home, so I was able to sob as much as I needed to.
Yes, Star Wars. It'll we love it, but it'll get you in your feels.
It'll get you.
But yeah, so as I feel like I should add that as a question. You know what? I am gonna add that as a question as the first favorite. What is your favorite like emotional moment in Star Wars? Whether it was like gut wrenching or makes you really happy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Emotional moment. It's so hard because there's so many like different moments. Like definitely for like huge emotional moments. Din and Grogu when they were first separated, when Grogu is going to be going with Luke and he takes the
Hmm.
helmet off. Oh my god, they killed me, and it kills me every time. But Seer's death also absolutely destroys me every time. Like I ugly, like I can't even speak anymore. Ugly sobbed, and I just had to put the controller down and just sit there in my feelings. And then I like was like, okay, we can move on. And then when Grease sees her,
Hmm.
that was the end for me. I was out once again. And I was like, I can't do this. It was, oh my God, it was so sad. She went out though,
Yeah, she went out,
like a
and it's
baddie.
just and you're cut out on the acolyte, right?
Yes.
Spoilers for if you have not caught up on the acolyte. Skip ahead like I don't know 30 seconds to a minute, but the scene that I just realized is when Seer jumps more aggressively to take out Vader, and when Jackie jumps more aggressive or charges more aggressively to take out Chimere, they both lose, and
Yep.
the same way. And I'm just like, don't charge anymore, Jedi.
No
Just
more.
stick to your defense.
That
And
scene though, because I watched The Acolyte, so it was very hard for me to watch it in the beginning because I was in the field.
mm,
And so I had heard everybody talking about the fifth episode, and I was like, I have to watch it. So, like right before our last day, we were going out in the field. I woke up earlier than everybody else and sat on the couch and watched it with my headphones on my phone, which is not the
mm.
ideal viewing way. But when it got to that scene with Jackie, I gasped and I was like, I have to be quiet. Everybody's asleep. But I was like, oh my God. I just wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, I was watching it with my brother, and see, I thought everybody but Jackie and Yord would be safe. Like
Yours
I
shocked
thought,
me too. Yeah.
yeah. And so then, because I thought it was like, especially with Daphne Keene, I was like, she's a rising star. They're gonna keep her around, and she's a younger character. Like she's gonna be good. And then zoom, zoom, zoom. I'm like, oh. And then Yord, and I was like, oh. And I'm watching it with my brother. And I'm like, oh.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I wish I had my reaction because I'm just like, oh.
Yeah.
Just like like when your parent, like when you're in the front seat with your parent, they had to slam on their brakes, and they reach
And
out,
then
and
they put the,
like it
yeah.
was just that. Yeah, I was just like, oh,
Yes, I know exactly that.
yeah. The emotional moments for me, I would think sad. It's got to go. Chewie reacting to Leia's death.
Oh, yeah, that one's rough.
Um, or every time I hear Leia's theme now, no matter what it's in. And then happy moment I got to go with Return of the Jedi, the Ewok party, especially with like victory celebration, everybody hugging. Um, because we kind of did that at Celebration 22 when we all finally got to meet up and we all, like it was just like those moments are like kind of combined.
Yeah.
I a very also another very euphoric moment is the Ray Poe Finn hug
I
in
was
the end of
just
Rise of
thinking that
Skywalker.
one.
It is like the best hug in all of Star Wars.
That was the one I was thinking of for my happy moment because it's just like such a relief, and you see how much that they love each other and they have such like an embrace with each other, and I just love that scene so much.
But they deserved a party.
They also
They're
deserved a party. Yes, I agree.
yeah, they deserved a party for that. They should have all went back to Pasana and like partied it up in that festival. And then do that hug. It's
And I
like,
feel like
yeah, celebration.
Poe's got connections. Like he would be able to hook that party up.
Yeah. Um what is your favorite book?
So I just recently got into the books. I'm
Mhm.
still a new reader. I need to, I know everybody. I need to get into the High Republic. That's coming. It's just hard for me to like be able to read anything because of
Mhm.
the graduate degree. So
Yeah.
usually what will happen is I'll like listen to audiobooks when I'm in the
Yep.
lab. Um, so I have listened to Dark Disciple and I loved that book. I cried. I was in the lab setting up something or like disassembling something, and I was just sobbing at the end of it. And I was like, Star Wars is just getting me in all these different forms of media. But I loved it so much because I really like Asajj, and I was really excited to be able to get to know her more in depth and hear about like what she's thinking and how she's feeling and what happened after that we didn't see, and then getting to know Quinlan because we
Hmm.
didn't really see him hardly at all.
Yeah. Dark Disciple, I think, was my first canon book, because I think I read it not too long after it came out. And I was a big Quinlan and Asajj fan from Legends, because there was a comic series called Star Wars Republic that pretty much after the first three arcs pretty much became the Quinlan Voss comic, outside of maybe like 10 to 20 comics where they're focusing on Obi-Wan and Anakin.
Yeah.
It's really like Quinlan's story. And
Yes.
Asajj also, especially when you get to the Obi-Wan and Anakin uh, parts, also had a pretty good story to play there. Although those two characters did not intersect there like they do, or at all, really. But yeah, Dark Disciple, really good. Another really good one that also came out around the same time, Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. If you
That's
haven't
what
read
I've
it yet,
heard everybody say.
oh, sensational book. Sensational book.
I'll have to add that to the list.
Yeah. And then the
And
High Republic, just prepare
yeah,
for trouble.
I've also heard about that. I've heard it's going to put me in pain.
Yep. I love it, but it's going to hurt.
The things we love sometimes hurt us. I
Yep.
should also say that like we hadn't seen much with Quinlan in canon, so I have
Yeah.
engaged with a lot of the canon because like I'm still somewhat new of a Star Wars fan, so I've been like
Hmm.
in the canon, and then I'll be able to bridge out into other things.
Yeah. And then now you'll also have the benefit of being able to get like omnibuses or trade paperbacks or something like that,
Yeah,
which will make things a lot easier. Because they did do that in Legends, but then it was like there were so many, and then like you would be hard pressed to get it at your local Borders, RIP, or Barnes and Noble. But yeah, uh, I got tons of Legends of recommendations. So when you're ready for that, I got you.
nice.
So three of your favorite characters, anytime, any era, any non-canon, Legends, canon, whatever, doesn't matter.
I know that the prompt is three, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't help it. I have to have the four because they're all of my group. So I
Mm-hmm.
would say Ahsoka Tano. I mean,
Yep.
obviously you have to, and then Cal Kestis and BD1. I consider them
Mm-hmm.
a unit. They go
Yeah.
together. They cannot be
Yep.
separated.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Then I would say Jin and Grogu. Again, a unit that cannot be separated. My shirt is this ridiculous like 80s style
Mm-hmm.
or 90s style photo of them, like the class photo shoot. And then Ray Skywalker, and I'll say Skywalker because that's what she is. That
That
never
that's her name.
that never bothered me. I don't know why it bothered people so much. Now I understand the fact that I watched them all in succession together, so I didn't have the
Mm-hmm.
long time of pondering and thinking about these things in the way that other people did. But to me, it made sense that she would take on that name because essentially Luke and Leia were adopting her into the family and saying, "You're one
Mm-hmm.
of us now," and so she can take on that name.
Yeah. So I remember going into the movie. Bunch of it got leaked beforehand, and I was just like, "That's not real." Well, not that part. I didn't really care about that part. There are
Yeah,
other parts where I was like, "That's not real." I should have learned from when I read the spoilers for Game of Thrones. It was indeed real. But uh, when it came to that, there were like two competing theories even before those theories came out. It was either that Rey was going to be Luke's daughter, or so that's what it meant by the Rise of Skywalker, or that she was going to start a new Jedi Order. Instead of calling it Jedi, they were going to be called the Skywalkers. I was hoping for that one. So then when she said Rey Skywalker, I was just like, okay. I was like, it's corny, but Star Wars is corny.
Oh
So
yeah,
I was like, it's fine. But then I don't understand when I read the book, the Rise of Skywalker novelization. Luke literally says, "It's yours, Rey. Take it," or like one of the either a combination or just both. And I was just like, well, why wouldn't you just include that in the movie? Like, I'm sure Mark
yeah,
Hamill probably said it, or you could just throw him in a closet to do ADR to say for 5 takes, like say this. Like
yeah,
I don't know why you just would just have them standing there instead of just saying that, but it is what it is. Like Ray Skywalker is fine. Come on,
yeah.
man. It's not the most you know mind-boggling thing to happen in Star Wars.
Right.
So like, and then for two of your picks, Din and Grogu have their movie coming out, and then I don't think we have a date on that one, but then we have Ray's new Jedi Order movie in 2026, I think.
I think we'll see if it actually comes out then.
Yeah,
I just keep
but
winning.
hey, we're about to eat. We're about to eat.
We stay winning.
Yeah. What is your favorite Star Wars quote?
My favorite Star Wars quote, and I wrote it down so I would not forget it,
Mm-hmm.
is yes, I know that I'm going back to the Jedi series, but I really love the line in Jedi Fallen Order where Eno Cordova says that failure is not the end, it is a necessary part of the path. So it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like, I mean, it's obviously it's a really important line and what it has to say is applicable to a lot of people, but like it might sound like it's like, oh, that's so generic, but when you have it in the context of the story, it's so meaningful in that moment to Cal. And I love the way that it's used and the way that like he says it, like the line reading for it is really nice. And so that's for me my favorite one. And I love how they did it when you play Jedi Survivor and they have when you first start the game and you can go back and watch it later, the recap for Jedi Fallen Order. The way that
Mm-hmm.
they incorporate it in there is just chef's kiss.
Yeah. Cordova, I really like him as a character. And it was one of those things like when he popped up in Survivor, I was like, wait, he's alive? I mean for then. But
So
yeah.
I remember when that game first came out that everybody that made the game was like, hey, don't spoil this game for other people. And people immediately spoiled that game. And it was
Mm-hmm.
everywhere and it was so hard to like not find spoilers. Now I also when I play games, it takes me a long time because I like to explore everything, I look at
Mm-hmm.
everything, and also I'm a graduate student, so it'll take me like 3 months to play it. So I knew that spoilers were inevitable, but like there were like massive spoilers that were out within the first 3 days of it being out, which is crazy. So that was one of the things that was spoiled for me. And I was very upset because I was like, I would have loved to have the reaction of not knowing that he was going to be in it and then be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh my God, Eno Cordova is here. Which I mean, I was
Yeah.
still like that, but like I wish I had had that moment. The thing that was not spoiled for me is I knew that Bode was suspicious and I had seen some of that, but I was like trying to get away from those. So I knew that
Mm-hmm.
something was up, but I did not know that he was going to be like a fallen Jedi essentially.
Yeah.
I suspected it on my own, especially there's a little scene that you can walk up and talk to him in the ship after they defeat why did his name leave me?
Dagon.
Yes,
Dagon.
Dagon Gera. As soon as I thought of it, it just went phew. With Dagon Gera, as soon as they defeat him, you go into the ship and you can talk to Bode, and Bode's like, "Hey, did you have like force visions or anything like that?" And I was like, "That's odd that he can have those." So I was like, "That's really suspicious." And then when he's
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, I'm gonna leave," or Cal's like, I'm going to leave, and Bode says, I'll just stay here, and the lightsaber's still there. I was like, that's suspicious. So I wasn't fully surprised, but at the same time, I was like, oh, this wasn't spoiled. I didn't, like, I kind of saw this coming, but not really.
Yeah, I definitely noticed that tonal shift for him, like after that fight, and I was just like, "You about to do something? I don't know what, but you're about to do something."
Yeah,
And
something was
then
off.
he used the force, and I'm just like,
Oh, yeah, no, when he did that, I was like, oh,
"Yeah." He's
that was
like, "You're
crazy.
not the only survivor." Well, my first reaction was roll credits, but then I was just like, "Yeah." I just, you know, and I didn't think Eno was going to be Eno. I thought it was going to be Seer. And especially that's why BD1 was reacting that way. And then it pans up, and I'm just like, I did not see that coming. Like I think maybe about 2 weeks out from the game, at least on Twitter, I had muted every word that I could
I did
think
too.
of uh, for until I beat the game.
Yeah,
Um,
TikTok was the worst one.
yeah, it was kind of impossible. And then there was, so I was watching B Dazzler play, and I was maybe like a few hours ahead of her while she was streaming. So I knew that the Calmarin kiss was coming up, and I was just like, I can't wait for her to see this.
Oh yeah.
And then someone spoiled it with like no spoiler warning. Like they just posted the kiss on TikTok, and she saw it because she was mutuals with this person, and I was just like, I got mad because I was like, I wanted to see this because like I knew how much you loved it. I was just like, come on now.
Oh no, that'd have been. Oh, that's the one because that wasn't spoiled for me.
Yeah.
I love it
'Cause,
when Cal's like in a trance after that, essentially, and BD's like, "Hey, hey, we need
like,
to go. We should
yeah,
leave.
come on now.
Wake up.
Like, dad, dad,
We have to go."
you got to
But
jump in that green tunnel.
oh my god, that scene had me screaming. I was so happy.
Hmm.
That was one of the coolest scenes in a game ever.
Yeah, in the trailer when they were like, oh, yeah, you'll be able to fight with me. And I'm like, I'm going to abuse that as long as they let me do it. Like, yeah. And then I was like, oh, well, you could have let me have that longer. But maybe in the next one because
Oh
it's
yeah,
only going to get more. But like, yeah, and you'll be able to fight with starts with a K. Bode's daughter.
Kata.
Yeah, Kata. I was like, so yeah, you're gonna have a family takedown.
Mhm.
Press like L1, R1, and R2, and you'll get the family takedown with BD just coming in with a stun at the last second.
I love that the family takedown. They should use that.
It should.
I do want to backtrack just a little bit because it reminds me of when you think about Bo. This is when Star Wars is its best, and why I love Star Wars so much because that whole situation is really complex and nuanced. Because yeah,
Hmm.
it sucks that Bo betrayed everyone, but when you hear him talking about what he's experienced, I understand the motives. It doesn't mean that what he did was right, obviously, but you
Yeah.
just feel bad for Bode and you feel bad
Hmm.
for Kata, and you're like, this is a situation where there is no winning.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Star Wars can thrive. Like you see that a lot in Andor too, where you go into the nuances of all of these situations, and there is no one right answer, and there's so many hardships that are happening, and so many different people coming from different backgrounds that have to interact with one another while they have this oppressive force over them.
Yeah, and I remember when you walk in to confront Bode in the apartment, and Kata's like, "Who's that?" And he's like, "That's my best friend." I'm like, "Oh, come
Yes.
on!"
Oh my god, that scene ruins me every time.
And I was just like throughout like leading up to the fight and when he's running away, I'm just like, Bo, let's just stop and talk. Let's just stop. We can work this out, man. Let's just stop and talk. And then, when he used the force and it like threw Kata, and I was like, all right, no more talking. You're about to get double tapped to the chest. And yeah, you tried, Bode. I
You
can't fault you because you thought you were doing your best to protect your daughter, and you were
yeah.
just like, "This is going to expose us." And I'm like, I get it. I really do get it.
And I think he
But
genuinely believed and felt like Cal was his best friend.
yep,
Because I think he started to fall for it, and then he was like, "Oh, I have a job to do, and I have to like figure out what my priorities are."
right. And then when you go back afterwards and you see like the force visions on things were bow, and I'm just like,
Ooh, some of
man, he's
those
just like,
hurt.
yeah, he'd be like, I can use Marin. I'm just like, bro, you did not hold back.
Yeah, there's one where he's like, "Oh, the poor sucker's in love," and I'm like, "Oh my god, okay,
Yeah,
you're making me not like you, but at the same time, I understand."
yeah, it was right. It was that one was when you land in the on Jeddah in there, and it was like the stormtrooper armor, and I was just like, oh man, and it's like y'all rubbing salt in the wound.
Yep, yep.
But okay, what is your favorite musical piece from Star Wars?
My favorite musical piece is the Andor theme.
Hmm.
I love the music in Andor. What I loved about it is that it is so unique in comparison to all of the other Star Wars music. Because a lot of the
Hmm.
Star Wars shows or movies or whatever, they try to have a similar composition to what John Williams did, which makes sense. Um, and I'm not saying that I don't like that because I love the music from the Jedi games, and it's very similar to the John Williams scores. But Andor took it in such a way that it was really fresh, and it's also like a similar style to what I like. So I think Nicholas Britell did such a phenomenal job exploring different emotions and having this music that really elevates all of the scenes that it's in. And I love how all of the themes are slightly different for each episode. And then
Hmm.
in the last episode, he put all of them on top of each other. And so that theme that you hear is all of them combined.
Yeah. I think that really works for the themes that build up in the show as
Right,
well. How everything sort of coalesces in that last episode, which is just
right.
phenomenal television.
Yes, I agree. I feel like I love The Mandalorian. I
Hmm.
love Star Wars Rebels, but I feel like the best Star Wars show to me is Andor.
Yeah. My favorite, if you really ask me, is still the 2003 animated series, but Andor is sensational.
Yeah,
That's getting added to the like annual rewatch,
yeah,
for Star Wars.
yes. Because
And
everything about it was good. The music was good. The way that it was filmed was good. The
hmm
storylines were amazing. And then it also was doing that thing where it's actively talking about subjects that are very relevant to what we're witnessing now in our
yeah,
world and what we've seen in the past, even. And I think it's the first one that really interrogates this is why the empire is bad. Because I think we're
hmm
told through the movies and through some other things that the empire is bad, but we're only told that the empire is bad. It's like, yeah, like people are oppressed and they can't have certain things they had beforehand, and that's bad.
hmm
But you don't see how bad it is until you're in Andor and people are being taken off the street and forced to work in these prisons essentially to death.
yeah. You get your Death Stars, your Star Killer bases, like that. That's the big thing. That's the big threat. That's the easy thing, but or like an easy thing to demonstrate, but like to carry the nuance of like this is what the everyday person's life is and what they have to deal with under the empire, and you compare that with what you hear from whatever the title is. It's like if you judge it by any metric, life under the empire was so much greater. It's like, but
That's
it
true.
but it was like if you had status, sure,
Yeah,
but for everybody else, no. It was an ant and a boot situation.
right,
Um, so yeah, I think Andor does that really well, and I'm really excited to see what they do for season two because I know it won't be the same since
right.
he's now in the rebellion. You'll probably see a little bit different there, but I am excited to see how they do that journey to Rogue One.
And I remember seeing that I think it's supposed to be like several years of time jumps in
Yeah, I think it's like every 3 episodes a year.
right, something along those kind of lines. And backtracking again a little bit, we do see things like Alderaan being blown up, for example. And
Yeah.
there's situations like in Rebels and such that these are bad things. Kanan dies, that's a bad thing. But
Hmm.
you don't really see how it affects everyday people, like what you were talking about. Like you see the planet blown up, but you don't see how it impacts people, right? And so
Right.
that's what I think Andor does so well.
Yeah, absolutely. So now it's time for your surprise mystery box question. The question that is tailored to you. And so, if you had to pick three species that you've studied or talked about in your content to put in Star Wars and start to zhuzh them up a little bit Star Wars style, what creatures would you pick?
Ooh, ooh. I love giant isopods. I feel like that
Hmm.
has to be in Star Wars somehow. They already look like they would be in Star Wars somehow. And
Hmm.
so that would be cool, but they don't have to be marine. I think just having giant isopods, because they're roly polies, having
Hmm.
those be this big that are on land and scuttling around where Like they did this in the Acolyte where they have the cute little guys. I think they're called Skua or something. The cute
Hmm.
new little guys where they like zoom in and they show you them moving around. I would love to see that with giant isopods.
Hmm.
Or maybe someone has like a little pet one that'll roll up. That would be awesome. Um, there's a fish called the sarcastic French head that they have these mouths that they can expand and they have lots of colors and they look really scary.
Hmm.
Those feel very Star Warsian, I would say, because they're just weird looking and it has all of those like flaring colors. So that feels very much to me like something Star Wars esque. That would be cool. And then, hmm, I think it would be really neat to add to the ecology of the space whales.
Hmm.
You have this fish called a remora that will hitch rides. It'll hitch rides on sharks and dolphins, but it also hitch
Hmm.
rides on whales. And I think it would be really cool if we saw something that was like a remora. So they have a suction cup that's on their head, and then they'll
Hmm.
use that to stick on to larger animals, and then they can just hitch a free ride slash get all of the food that the other animal is eating, the big one. That would be
Yeah.
really cool if we saw those attached to the space whales.
Yeah. Uh, and I would think like what like would they feed off of something in hyperspace?
Yeah, because I don't know about that. Because the reason that the space whales can travel is because they're consuming a gas that allows them to do hyperspace travel. But I don't know if they're consuming that just for hyperspace travel or if that's also like their food.
Yeah. But I guess you know maybe that's why they need that someone that studies marine biology to get in that room and be like, hey
Yeah,
guys, how about this?
I could be of assistance. And like for some of that stuff, I have to turn my brain off to some of it with the science. Because, for example, the whales would not be able to exist in the vacuum of space,
Right.
obviously. So the space whales would not be a thing. So I
Hmm.
had to turn it off and then be like, okay, well, since we've already bent those rules and they can survive in it, then we could figure out things like, well, what kind of food would they potentially be able to eat without thinking
Hmm.
about the fact that they would be like crushed if they were actually in space.
Yeah, I'm not good at turning off my brain for things like that. Like for like Ahsoka's trial, I'm like, this is terrible. They're like, where's the procedure? Where are the witnesses? Like, you mean, and it makes it worse because they make Padme, Ahsoka's defense attorney, and they make her. I mean, you don't really ever get to really see Padme do her defense, but I'm like, my first thing I'm doing as a defense attorney, because that's what I am in real life, is like, I'm calling up a Jedi to be the expert witness to say like, can someone use the force outside of the room? Yes. When if someone is choking someone, are they going to be moving like this, or are they going to be in a more aggressive manner, like that kind of thing? Like,
Yeah.
you gotta I was just like, come on now. One, Padme is better than this. Two, I was like, y'all could try a little bit more. But
Uh, yeah, I imagine that there's a lot of bad going on, especially during the Empire era
mhm.
because there is no justice in that.
Yeah. Oh, when they had Cassian do that, I was just like, Jesus. I was like, yeah. I was like, that seems like by all accounts of what fascist and authoritarian criminal courts are like. I was like, they covered that well.
Yeah,
He was just
that,
like,
that
I'm a
was
tourist. Six
not
months.
fair.
What?
Oh, actually, 6 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. You're right. We got this new one. The 6 years. Like, oh my god, can't even imagine. He's like, you were running away. I'm like, I was just minding my business.
They don't care. They wanted that free labor, that sweet sweet
Mm-hmm.
labor.
Yup, and to build a Death Star.
That scene hits cold.
Mm-hmm. Whereas because you're just like, what are they building? Because it's like, like, okay, maybe this could go in a starship, but we've never seen any parts like this before. And then to get that post credit scene, it's like, hmm,
It's
oh
like Tony
Cassian.
Gilroy, you sick man.
Yep. But thank you again for coming on, Brooke. This was a great time.
Thank you so much.
Before
I never get to talk about Star Wars, so I feel like I've gone on and on, but I'm so happy
oh
to talk with you about it.
oh yeah, this was great. We can talk Star Wars anytime. Just let me know. And before we wrap up here, let people know where they can find you and your awesome content.
You can find me at OceanFilly on like everything. So I'm on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and then my YouTube handle I think is also OceanFilly. But I have a
Mhm.
link tree that you can find like through TikTok or Instagram. It has all the places where you can find me.
Yeah. And make sure you check out Brooke's content because it is wonderful and you're going to learn things about things you never knew existed.
Thank you. I try. I even try to find things that I haven't heard about.
Yeah. And hey, you know, if you haven't learned about something if by watching her content, I just don't believe you. No one knows everything.
I used to have somebody that would like keep tallies of how many they had heard of and how many they hadn't,
Mm-hmm.
and then they would comment it on the videos.
To be like, Brooke, you got me again.
Yes, they would.
Well, thank you again. I hope you all enjoyed this episode of the There Are More of Us show. Make sure you check out Brooke and all of her content in all the places you can find it. And remember, until next time, there are more of us.